So it is now Saturday afternoon, so bear with me because I am quite tired. It's also pouring rain all day, so it's if you hear lightning in the background, that's what that is. We're on my ninth team, uh, but just to be clear, even though I don't have this team in the playoffs, I more than likely think this team will make the playoffs. Something will happen among the eight teams. Someone will get injured, what have you. This team's very well set up. I don't want it to seem like I'm knocking them or I don't think their team is good. Generally speaking, I think the gap between the number one team and like the 11th team is pretty narrow. There's a lot of good teams this year. And I think this team, with the amount of depth they have, is more than likely a playoff team. I don't know if they're a championship team, which is why I have them down here, but I don't want it to seem like just because I have them outside of the playoffs that I don't think this team is good. I think this team is actually quite good. If Justin is like a B plus, this team's probably like a C plus, but still quality. So where are we on number 9? We are at Stefan with Trafalger D. GreenLaw. So let's kind of jump into it. 15th nomination, $54, A.J. Brown. So I had A.J. Brown last year. He was good to me. He did miss some games that were tough for me, but we're going into year 4 with the Eagles, which has been good to him after some not so fun times in Tennessee. Despite them going to like an AFC Championship game, it was kind of a mess. Excuse me. So he did see a dip in targets last year. I think he was only averaging like 7.5 a game. That's down from 9 the previous year, and he did miss 4 games, as I mentioned. I think another thing was just because the Eagles were leading so much, they were either the run heaviest or the second run heaviest team in football last year. That's why Saquon got a 2,000-yard season. And he's finished in the top 8, A.J. Brown, in like target share and yards per route run. I want to say the last couple of years. He's been extremely boom or bust. Like last year, it was like feast or famine. There were 6 weeks where he was like a top 8 fantasy receiver, and then there were 7 games where he was like essentially like a top 40 receiver, where he averaged under like 13 points, which is still pretty good, but it's not what we're looking for typically from a wide receiver 1. So he is like a fringe wide receiver 1. And what's tough for me about this is like I like A.J. Brown, but the issue for you, Stefan, is like at his price at $54, you should have gotten a better deal. The reason I say that is because I compare that to Patrick's team with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson. Jefferson went for the same amount of money. Amon-Ra went for $1 more. And both those guys are top 3 fantasy receivers. Brown's like the 9th best fantasy receiver. He's a great player, but like even Malik Neighbors, I think Malik Neighbors had a better season than him last year, for being totally honest. So AJ is a safe player. He's a quality player. He's in an incredible offense. But for the price, like, is he worth what you paid for him? Yeah, but I would have preferred any of those guys over him, unfortunately. Like, if I compare him to Jamar Chase to Sarah, you basically paid for these receivers at cost. And with the way the draft was going, you probably shouldn't have done that. Now, in Sarah's defense, she did not know that, but that's usually why you don't like drafting guys so high, because you kind of want to see what the price is unless you know it's a deal. I'll go more into that in my own review, kind of like my thought process for that. But the kind of point is, I like A.J. Brown. I think he's quality. I think he's a good player. And I do think the Eagles will pass more, and I think he'll be healthier. So he'll probably get like 1,300 yards, maybe 90 receptions. Last year he only had 67. And I think he'll get his like 8 touchdowns. So I think he'll be like maybe the wide receiver 8, and that's pretty good. And for what you paid for him, that's a quality price. It's just tough for me because literally, I think, what was this? This was the 15th nomination. Amon-Ra was 14th. Jefferson was 17th. Neighbors was 20. So all those guys were drafted around him, and all those guys have higher upside and more, I would also say higher floors, even with the fact that I think the Eagles will pass more. It's tough. It's tough for me to see a way that A.J. Brown gets double-digit touchdown receptions. I see ways all those guys get double-digit touchdown receptions. So I like Brown. I think he's a quality player. I think you paid for him at cost, and that's just kind of tough for me, seeing how receivers I think are better went for around the same cost. Kind of with that is the next pick. So 31 nomination, $34, T. Higgins. Now, Sarah and I went back and forth on this. I am genuinely surprised Cincinnati signed T. Higgins. I don't think he'll be there long term, despite the contract extension, just because I have no belief in Cincinnati's ability to want to essentially pay him. I see his contract more as like a 1-year guarantee and then a bunch of we'll see options. But I think he'll be there at least a couple of years. I mean, he's a great teammate. Jamar Chase helped develop him, and obviously Joe Burrow wants him there. That being said, Higgins, unlike Chase, kind of like Burrow, struggles to stay healthy at times. Like, I think he's missed games 4 straight years in a row. And, yeah, only last year, he only played 12 games. He posted a career high in touchdowns, which was 10, which was very nice. And he was a very good fantasy player when he played. I think he was averaging like 18.5 points per game. So very, very good player when he played. He was a top 6 receiver. I think he was the number 6 receiver in fantasy when he played. So that's really, really good. I think he, what was it, in 7 of his 12 weeks, he was like top, yeah. So 7 of the 12 weeks, he was at minimum a top 15 receiver. He's the clear number 2 behind Chase, but he's in probably the pass-heaviest offense in football. It's them or the Cowboys. I think it's probably them, but the Cowboys are not far behind with how terrible their defense is. I think Higgins will probably get, like, last year he didn't break 1,000 yards. I think he easily breaks 1,000 yards, probably gets 1,100 yards. Probably less touchdowns, like 9, and probably like 94 to 100 receptions, somewhere between 90 to 100 receptions. So, quality, rock solid, wide receiver 2. But the concern is, just like A.J. Brown, he gets nicked up too. And at $34, you essentially paid for him at cost. Again, you paid for a wide receiver 2 at cost when I would have much preferred a Terry McLaurin for $16. Or I would have preferred like a Jameson Williams and a Romo Dunze for $12 and $7. Or a Jackson Smith and Jigba for $30. DJ Moore for $7. So, again, playing for a good player, a player that I like, a player in a good situation, but we're paying for what he's worth. And that's tough for me because, again, I don't think he's the number 1 on his team. I don't see that monster upside that can really elevate you to a title team. I think the team's good. I think these are good players. But you're kind of like capping yourself. You're putting a ceiling on your own team. That kind of goes to the next one. So 37 overall nomination, $55, Josh Jacobs. So coming into the draft, I really like Josh Jacobs. I had him as a target for me. He was probably, if I did get Genty and I didn't, I think my rule of thumb was just like I wanted to get like a number 1 running back. So if I did get Genty, chances are I was going to go after Jacobs. So getting him at 55 is quality. I actually think he was worth more. I think he is a rock solid RB1. I think He's probably outside the top 5, but he's probably top 7 with the possibility for more, just because I was surprised at how much Matt LaFleur leaned into him last year. Like, Jordan Love was having issues with turning the ball over, and it became the Josh Jacobs show up in Green Bay, which is still a surprise to me because he only had one season like that with the Raiders. But yeah, he finished, I want to say, 6th or better in carries, rush yards, carries inside the 5, touches, scrimmage yards, touchdowns, and fantasy points. So, like, just purely based on volume, the guy is getting his load. He did it kind of quietly in Green Bay, especially in the shadow of Saquon Barkley going off and Derrick Henry being in Baltimore and Christian McCaffrey getting hurt. But he was excellent. He was genuinely excellent up there. He was also, I want to say, like 15th in receiving yards among running backs. He had over 300. And while he hasn't been as consistent over his career because there's those years with the Raiders, all 6 of his years in the NFL, he's been at least a top 20 running back every single year. He doesn't really get hurt. And he's on the back end of his prime at 27. So all of that's to say, I really like Josh Jacobs. Now, I don't know if he's going to have, like, last year he had 16 touchdowns. So again, in the shadow of Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs was excellent. I guess Bijan Robinson too, he was in the shadow of. But, like, still, excellent player. I don't know if he's going to quite do what he did last year. I think he'll probably get maybe a little less yardage, maybe around like 1,200 yards, maybe like 12 touchdowns. I still think he gets his 300 receiving, maybe a few more receptions this way, maybe like 40. But he is a rock-solid RB1 that you basically got at essentially an RB2 price. And this is the best pick that I have for you so far on your team. I really like Josh Jacobs. I think he's in a terrific situation. I'm genuinely surprised that the offense is actually built around him. I would have figured, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, we have Matthew Golden. No, it's the Josh Jacobs show. Jordan Love is going for a ride on the Josh Jacobs show. So, really like the pick. Really like the pick. I think he was probably a $70 player and got him for $55. So, fantastic. Finally got some cost savings. We paid for at cost. We didn't overpay. We paid for at cost for a couple of receivers. And we surprisingly got a discount on a running back. A very good running back. 44th nomination. $4. Travis Etienne Jr. So, woof. Last year wasn't great for Etienne. We're going into his contract year. I think he cleared 1,400 yards in 22 and 23, and then last year he didn't clear 600 yards. So he got less than half. Really bad. He had a career low in touches, yards, and touchdowns. I think he only had 2 last year, 2 touchdowns. His touchdowns were scored in like the first 2 weeks of the season, so he didn't score after that. So yeah, it had to have been 2. Wow. He's still in his prime. I mean, it's kind of crazy to consider that Josh Jacobs is 27 and Trevor Etienne Jr. is 26. But his efficiency just kind of fell off the wagon. He was not good last year. And if I'm being really honest, I think Tank Bigsby is probably going to take the job this year. Now, I don't know that. I'm not completely certain of it. But I think getting the Jacksonville running back core at a discount is really good for you. I think everyone's kind of underrating them, mostly because the head coach is Liam Cohen. Obviously, Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator for the Bucs. Look what Liam Cohen did with Bucky Irving last year. So I'm not saying he's going to do that exact same thing with someone in Jacksonville, but there's no way, like, they're not going to have somebody run for at least 800 yards in that backfield. There's got to be somebody, because I don't really trust Trevor Lawrence, and really the run game's really important because the offensive line's just, I mean, the whole AFC South is bad offensive line, so the offensive line can maybe run block, can't really pass block. All of that's to say, I think ETN is a bench guy. I think ETN is sadly kind of like become like a bad version of Najee Harris. He's just not very efficient. His vision isn't what it used to be, and the explosion he had coming out kind of got lost in after the knee injury his rookie year. So we'll say like 400 yards. We'll say like a couple touchdowns and maybe 300 yards receiving. If I'm being honest, I mean, they took like Bashal Tootin. And there's a chance Tootin becomes the guy. I really don't know. But I think there's a better chance of Tootin or Bigsby becoming the guy than there is of ETN. So I think ETN is, funny enough, kind of like the handcuff to Bigsby. And the fact that you got both is kind of fascinating to me. But we really, really, really started leaning into running back. So 79 nominations, $7, Tony Pollard. So year 2 in Tennessee, the Tony Pollard we saw, I want to say like 4 years ago in Dallas. I'm still waiting to see that again. He was 8th in carries and 10th in targets last year. He's produced, I think last year he produced over 1,300 yards, so over 1,000 yards rushing and over 200 yards receiving. So he didn't get a whole lot of like goal line work. I'm pretty sure they gave that to Tajay Spears, which is part of the reason why I drafted him. He's not a super exciting guy. Like, I think he only reached 19 fantasy points once in the season. And he was roughly like the running back 20 essentially in fantasy. I think he's going into year 28, so he's in the back end of his prime too. I think that he'll get his 1,000 yards. I think he'll get more yards receiving. He'll get over 300 yards receiving. I think he'll get like close to 50 receptions. Really, the thing for you to kind of keep in mind is Tajay Spears is on IR with a high ankle sprain, so he's gone at least 4 weeks. Chances are high ankle sprains take like 8 weeks. He had it like 3 weeks ago, so he might be gone 5 or 6 weeks. When Tajay Spears is out, it was the Tony Pollard show. He was getting workload like Chase Brown got in Cincinnati. Now, I don't know if he can handle that kind of workload over a whole season, but the point I'm trying to make for you is like, you're going to probably get a lot of really great production the first 5 weeks of Tony Pollard, and I don't want you to kind of fall in love with that production because that's not going to be him the whole season. This is a timeshare. This is a committee. Him getting like 85% of the snaps and probably putting up some good numbers this first month, you might think, oh, I can build this team around him. That is not true. That is a mirage because that is volume. That is not because he is clearly better than his backups. It's because his backups are not there. So just kind of keep that in mind. I like Pollard. I think you getting him at $7 is really good, especially because running back depth is very important. I wonder, again, if he's really a starting caliber player in the playoffs. He's probably a flex. I think he's certainly better than, like Patrick has like Ramondre Stevenson as his RB2. He's certainly better than Ramondre Stevenson. So I think he's a good quality player. I just don't really know, again, there's not, like you're going to get like a good start to the year and he's going to be very good, but like when we come to the playoffs, is he really going to be like getting 15 touches a game, maybe getting you like 10, 11 points, and is that going to get you a championship? Probably not. So I think again you've set yourself up well with a lot of depth, but this is kind of like a very good depth running back that I like, that I would want on my team to navigate the season. But it's not someone that I would really want to start in the playoffs that I think would like give me high upside. Yeah, if that makes sense. So he's a good quality player, though. I think he's starting for you right now, so I kind of get it. 87th nomination, $8. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. So again, I think people just kind of buy in the hype. Krosky Merritt should not have cost more than Tony Pollard. That's silly. I don't think he's even going to come. Like, if we want to go on fantasy points, I think Pollard's going to score around 230. Merritt will be lucky to break 175. But people are going to buy the upside. So, what was it? I want to say Merritt spent 6 years in college, 4 at Alabama State, and then 2 at New Mexico. His breakout actually happened in 2023, and then he only played 1 game last year. So he was lucky to get drafted. Because he's older, he's going to kind of like get pushed in very quickly. I think with them shipping out Brian Robinson Jr. and with Austin Eckler being basically the receiving back, they're expecting either Chris Rodriguez Jr. or Krosky Merritt to kind of like be the guy. But this is genuinely like a heavy, deep committee. I didn't even mention Jeremy McNichols, who they're talking up. Now, granted, I don't believe in Jeremy McNichols. We've seen a lot of him. I also think Austin Eckler is over the hill. But I don't like the idea of using 4 running backs. That's a lot. I think he has a legitimate chance at leading the Washington backfield, and that's probably why you had to pay format costs for $8. I think since I'm not really sure how the committee's going to break out, I'm kind of gonna pigeonhole him and just put him at like 800 yards rushing and maybe like 5 touchdowns. There is the possibility for more. I understand the upside. I understand the desire for rookies. And I even get, like, when he was at New Mexico 2 years ago, that was probably the best New Mexico football team in like 40 years. And he was one of the best players on that team. And he was hyper efficient. But I don't know how the injuries affected him. I don't know how healthy he's going to be. I don't know the workload he's going to get. I don't know the role that they have in mind. I don't know any of that. So we're kind of going in blind. I guess for $8, I don't mind it. But this is not... He's an upside play, and I agree that you are a team that could use the upside. But then I'm kind of just like, where are we going to do an upside receiver? Are we going to like get like a rookie running back who has a more clear role? Like, you didn't have to get Hampton or Henderson, but you could have gotten Caleb Johnson, something along those lines. Because they didn't put a lot into Krosky Merritt. He's a 7th round pick. So I can't expect a ton from him, even if I did really like him a couple years ago. So, yeah, I don't mind it for $8. I would have preferred to get him for cheap. I suppose you're going for the upside. But this is like the first real upside play that you've made this entire draft. So, yeah. 100th nomination, $4, Tank Bigsby. So you paired... As I mentioned before, the $4 Travis Etienne, his brother's Trevor in Carolina, and you paired him with Tank Bigsby. I think Bigsby is going to be the guy in Jacksonville. It just all signs kind of point to me personally, from like the preseason to what Cohen's talking about to the role they kind of have in mind, to the fact that Etienne, again, only had 2 touchdowns. Bigsby had 7 last year. He's the goal line guy. And even with Tutton, and even if I think it's kind of a committee like Washington, I think there's a more set idea with Bigsby than there is in Washington, where with the Cliff Kingsbury air raid, we're kind of just like putting everyone out there at any point in time. I think Cohen's going to kind of lean on somebody like he did with Bucky Irving last year. So I think Bigsby's that guy. I don't really know what the role will be. I could see him breaking 1,000 yards, but I really don't know. So in the meantime, I'm only going to shoot for like 800, and we're going to say we're going to put like 5 touchdowns. Because unlike Etienne, the problem is Bigsby's not much of a pass catcher. That would be Etienne. He's on your bench too. You kind of don't know what to do in Jacksonville. So he should just stay on your bench until you kind of feel it out. Who is it? What's their role? how many points are they producing? What's the offense look like? So, because I'm hopeful Cohen kind of works his magic, and it looks like what it was with the Bucks this past year, but I don't know. That O-line is not anywhere close to what the Bucks O-line is. And, he might have drafted Tutton to be the guy. I would hate that, but that might have happened. So, kind of interested to see what happens. I don't mind spending $8 to get 2 running backs to see which one's the starter, just simply because running backs are currency in this league and you can always move them later. But it's just going to be kind of tough to keep them both, keep an entire backfield on your bench and not play them while you figure it out. Okay, 134th nomination, $18, my guy RJ Harvey out of my school, UCF. So I mentioned this before during the draft. I think that Sean Payton fell in love with RJ Harvey. Just the same way that some teams draft for talent. Like, I think Pete Carroll looked at Ashton Jeanty and said, "You're my new Marshawn Lynch." Because he went through the Thomas Rawls, he went through the Chris Carson, he went through the Kenneth Walker, and none of those guys really seemed to connect with what Carroll wanted to do. Jeanty does. But there are teams that draft for talent kind of like that, kind of like way back when Dave Gettleman took Saquon number 2 overall. And then there are teams that draft for fit, kind of like Sean Payton drafted Bo Nix last year because he thought he was a perfect fit after dealing with the Russell Wilson debacle. Payton kind of leans into that and drafted Harvey for that. If you really want to go back, Payton in 2017 took Alvin Kamara out of Tennessee, and everyone thought that was an overdraft at the time. And the reason being is because Kamara had to transfer out of Alabama, go to Tennessee just to get play time, and he was like a decent pass catcher. Like, he had the acceleration if you go back and watch the film, but no one really saw him becoming what he's been for basically the last 8 years, except for Payton. And that's kind of the exact same way I feel about RJ Harvey. So he's a bit small. Like, he's 5'8", 205. I literally am taller than him, and I literally weigh more than him. But he is... The way I would describe him is he has wiggle. Like, he has an ability just to wiggle in and out of, trouble. And he's explosive. I think he led the class in top 10 plus yard runs last year coming out of UCF. He had a 4.4 40, so pretty quick. He had a 38-inch vertical. He had 127-inch broad jump. I think J.K. Dobbins is more trustworthy, and he will start the year as the starter. So I think you're starting R.J. Harvey. I think he's your upside play. I don't know if I would have... the reason why I didn't go for him is because, A, I didn't have any money. But also, B, I didn't feel like... I felt like you're overpaying for him because you don't really know what he is, even if I like the situation. I just feel like Dobbins is there, and they brought in Dobbins late into camp because they trust him more. Because if you go back and watch the film, R.J. Harvey's not a good pass blocker. He's just not good at it. And you really need somebody back there to protect Bo Nix, because that is the offense. So it's going to take some time for Payton to trust Harvey in those situations. I think it'll happen. I think it'll happen on the back end of the season, kind of like Caleb Johnson. And I think in the passing game is where Harvey's going to make his bones, make his meat. Yeah, you understand. I think that's where he's really going to make his mark, essentially, is in the passing game, because he's just, you get him the ball in open space, that man is gone. He's like a upgraded version of Rachaad White, and I think Rachaad White's a very good pass catcher. But he can also do some things between the tackles. Do you trust him back there to protect Bo Nix? And right now, I don't think they do. So in the meantime, I think they're going to keep him on the bench, and we're just going to have to wait and see. I think if he's starting the back end of the season, he's probably getting 800 yards. He's probably getting 6 touchdowns. And that sounds like you overpaid for a running back whose numbers sound exceedingly similar to Tank Bigsby, who went for $4. And I would say yes, that is what I think. Because even though he's a rookie, he's not got the runway to take the job and go with it, not like Hampton and Genty. This is more of someone who still, even at 24, is developing, funny enough. And while I think Peyton is the perfect place for him, and I think he's in a great situation, and I think they draft him exclusively because of what his skill set does in that situation, it's going to take time for them to trust him, which I don't like. But, the same way Aaron Jones had to wait 11 games, even though it was super obvious he was better than Jamal Williams. This is what coaches do. So you're just going to have to be patient with Harvey. I think you're starting him. I guess you can see if he plays a lot. If he does hit the ground running and play a lot, then boom, you got an instant starter. But I just don't know if that's in the cards. So I would be patient with him, though. I think he's tremendous. 148th overall, $6 Stephon Diggs. Okay, so Diggs was in Buffalo, got traded to Houston, was in Houston, doing pretty well, playing the number 2 to Nico Collins, blows out his knee. I think I got that right. So we're going to year 11 with Diggs. He's now 31. He came into the league at 20. Real young. He was pretty good in Houston for when he played. I think he was getting like 15 fantasy points a game. And I think he tore his ACL, if I remember correctly, like week 8. So like late October, early November. He's been a top 25 like in fantasy points per game the last like 9 years. You'd have to go all the way back to like year 2 in Minnesota for him not to be a quality starter. And he's got no real competition in New England. I mean, if you really want to say, oh, we have like Kyle Williams and we have Demario Douglas and like, I mean, I like Travion Henderson, I like Ramondre Stevenson, but like Diggs is far and away the most talented player on that team. Now he's super volatile, and I don't know if I trust him to help develop the young guys, but that's beside the point. I think Diggs is great. I think he's still a quality route runner. We're going to have to see how that knee injury impacts him and how much he's going to play. I think he'll start the season just because they're trying to ramp him up there. So he'll probably get his 1,000 yards. He'll probably get his like 5 touchdowns. And he's probably like, there's the possibility of him being a wide receiver too, but right now I'm going to put him in like the flex area. So 2 levels down from that. Just because I need to see how healthy he is. I need to see like what the offense looks like. This could be a very run-heavy offense behind Stevenson and Henderson. And even then, it'd kind of be like A.J. Brown in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel as the coach. And we also have Josh McDaniels as the OC, so I can't imagine them being that run-heavy. But that also means he's got to be 100% healthy, and he is not 100% healthy. I don't think he's 100% healthy right now. It's weird. Diggs is a weird case. I would actually feel more comfortable if they sat him out and put him on IR and made sure he was 100% healthy than kind of trot him out there if he's not ready. And I don't know if he is. So I think he's a good price to get a possible wide receiver too. I think for you, it's very strange. I mean, we have A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, and Stephon Diggs, like super veteran injury risk guys at wide receiver. And I'm pretty sure we have a couple more receivers, but I don't know if either of them are ready to play at all. So I don't know. Again, this is kind of like you got great depth at running back, but then you picked like receivers who you would need someone to back them up. You would need depth there, and you just totally ignored it. I guess we'll kind of go into that because you kind of doubled down and you paired Diggs with the 2/9 selection, $2 on Drake May. So I mentioned like there are teams that should be trading for like players on the back end. Like this is one of those teams. Stefan has like 7 running backs, and they're all probably contributors. He has like maybe 3 contributing receivers who I think are off injured and a not great quarterback. Now, you can do things with that. You can trade a running back to get a receiver. You can trade a running back to get a quarterback. I would want to see what May has, but you're definitely going to want to like You might want to keep all of the running backs, but this isn't a team that you can really wait on. You have the depth for a reason. You kind of should use it rather than like being patient and hoping for the first opportunity. I felt like that's kind of what you and Brian were doing with the Baker Mayfield dance last year, where you guys couldn't make a deal. The deal to trade Baker would have happened much earlier in the season because then you would have had more runway to start him. But you guys just couldn't. You just kept delay. You shouldn't do that. I mean, in a strange way, Lauren's hyper fixation with like trying to get better and constantly making deals is a good thing because you know you can always find a partner for something, and her aggressiveness usually pays off in like the long run. And yeah, being conservative with trades doesn't typically work out. All of that's to say, May is the starter in New England. Jacoby Brissett is gone. He was the third overall pick after Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. I think he only had one top 10 outing when he started last year. It was kind of brutal. He didn't really have anyone to pass to. He also has Mike Vrabel, so this is going to be a run-heavy offense. I think he can run. He's a pretty good rusher. People kind of forget about that. He's kind of like, I don't think he's as fast as Kyler Murray, but he runs as much as him. So I could see like a 500-yard rushing season from Drake May. And I think he'll definitely pass for more yards than he did. He's got to break at least like 3,500. He'll probably get around like 21 touchdowns and maybe like 3 rushing touchdowns. There's the possibility for more, which is why you have him. So I don't mind trotting him out there and kind of seeing. But don't be like, I mean, I remember last year you had Caleb Williams for like half the season. And you're just like, maybe he'll turn around. And I'm just kind of sitting there. And I'm like, Matt Eberflus, I think, got canned week 7, and he still had Caleb Williams. I think Robbie kept Anthony Richardson on his team for like 10 weeks. And I'm like, why the hell do you guys hang on to these quarterbacks for so long? Like, this isn't a running back where maybe he's not getting the opportunity. And even if you want to say, well, it's a quarterback, maybe he'll get better as the season goes on. Like, I'm going to be honest, like, I don't got time for that. Like, yeah, okay, he's a rookie quarterback. He's in a bad situation more often than not. Like, Caleb Williams was not in a good situation last year. Drake May was not in a good situation last year. I think it's better with Vrabel, but I don't know if it's great. I can't say that Ryan Tannehill, I guess Ryan Tannehill technically helped Brian win a championship, but he didn't start for more than 6 weeks that season, and that's kind of what May is going to be treated like. So, yeah, it's not, I think there's upside. I think you're just kind of waiting to get a quarterback. I think you're a team that's going to be looking for a quarterback. Yeah, I like May. I like his upside. I think he'll be somebody in time. I just don't have the patience to wait for that time because I do not think that time is now. That time is not now. The offensive line is better. The receiving core is better. The running back duo is good. The coaching staff is competent. But that doesn't mean we're going to get top 10 fantasy quarterback play. I don't know about all that. So right now, I'm just going to put him literally as exactly average in the NFL, and he will be my 16th rated fantasy quarterback, which means he's not a starter in our league. Now, I give it a month, maybe see if something turns around, maybe see if something clicks. But, if we're waiting 2 months, 10 weeks, whatever, Jordan Love will turn around. Oh, CJ Stroud will turn around. Oh, Drake May will turn around. Guess what? You missed Sam Darnold last year. Now, I didn't believe Sam Darnold was going to have a great season, but if Sam Darnold's having that kind of season the first month, he's probably pretty good. Guess what? He was pretty good. He went to the Pro Bowl. He was genuinely excellent. The Vikings won 12 games. Sometimes you got to trust what you see. You can't just wait forever for someone to turn around because they might not. I'm willing to do that with running backs because running back is such a position of attrition. I'm not willing to do that with quarterback. Quarterback, I can find a quarterback. I need you right now. I need you to go right now. I need you to be good right now. So If I was an actual NFL franchise, yeah, I'd be very patient with my rookie quarterbacks. But in fantasy, no way. Uh, there are 32 teams in the NFL. There are 14 teams in our league. That means I have, at any given point in time, 18 teams essentially that might have a quarterback on free agency. So somewhere between, like, I think 6 teams currently right now have backup quarterbacks. Um, Most of the teams at the bottom have backup quarterbacks, so that tells you something. Um, yeah, you can usually find a guy. Baker Mayfield was free last year. Sam Darnold was free last year. Do not be patient with quarterbacks. All right, if you're like slipping and losing games because your quarterback's giving you like 10 points, you're just like, I'll wait. It's foolishness. 215 nomination, $1 on Christian Kirk. I think he got traded by Jacksonville here, if I remember correctly. I know the Steelers were trying to trade for him last year, and then he got hurt right before the deadline. I know we're going back 3 years to his career high in his career high in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. So it's been a little bit, but I think he's only had like one season in the top 30 receivers, and that was that season. Last year with the injury, he didn't even break 400 yards. He's also competing with the rookies Jalen Noel, and I think I mentioned like Jaden Higgins for the number 2 slot in Houston. Excuse me. I think he'll be the slot guy. I think he's a quality player. I think he's there more to help develop the young guys than he is to actually contribute, though. He's another guy who would just be on my bench. Possibly I would cut to find some upside. He'll probably give you like maybe 650 yards, maybe 3 or 4 touchdowns. I just have very little belief in Houston. I know Robbie really is talking up Houston. I do not trust a team with a terrible offensive line. The same way I don't trust the Bengals. The Bengals will win more games just because I think Joe Burrow is such a great quarterback. I don't think C.J. Stroud's such a great quarterback. That's not to say he's bad. I think he's above average. But the O-line is awful. They are truly the worst in the NFL. There is no talent there. So I don't really know what we're going to do with Kirk. He's kind of there, and I guess considering our other receivers, he's the guy who would have to start in case someone gets hurt. But it's really not great. Like, that's not a great situation. 229, Dante Thornton Jr., number $1 out of Vegas. Okay. This is super interesting. Like, we're going to get really into the weeds. So he was selected in the 4th round by the Raiders. He is a definitely weird guy. He's 6'5", runs like a 4.35, has like an enormous like jumping ability. I think he's got like a 38-inch vertical. Essentially, his measurables are comparable to Calvin Johnson, which is a kind of crazy thing to say. Yeah, he runs a 4.3 40, and he's 6'4", 205, if I remember exactly right. That's what he weighed at the combine. So, like, dude's just a freak. He's an athletic freak. But he wasn't exactly used a whole lot in college. Like, that's kind of why he fell all the way to the 4th round. He was at Tennessee, and they didn't really know what to do with him. Like, he didn't really fit into Josh Heupel's offense. And granted, this is a team that had, like, Jalen Hyatt a couple years ago win the Biletnikoff for best receiver, and all he ran was go routes, essentially. But Thornton is super raw. Like, I don't think he knows how to run. He doesn't have a complete route tree. I'm not sure he has more knowledge than maybe running 2 routes, which is like a go route. So a go route's basically like deep ball. And like a comeback, which is like kind of cut back and like catch it. That's basically his entire route tree. I don't know if he knows anything else. So he's super duper raw. Like, if you were creating a wide receiver in the lab, this is what you would make. You would make Calvin Johnson. But the difference is when Calvin Johnson came out of Georgia Tech, he could do everything. And he had the knowledge to be able to do it all. Thornton is kind of like, has all the athleticism and none of that knowledge. So he's someone I would want in the long term to kind of like see develop. I could see him possibly being a guy if he like comes along quickly in Vegas because they need receiving help. Like I have Jacoby Myers. They don't really have much else. That's why they signed Amari Cooper. That's why they took Brock Bowers last year so high. I mean, they brought in Geno Smith, but they need help. But I don't know if Thornton's going to be that help this year because the dude's so raw. So it's kind of funny in a way. Like, I really like his upside, and I would love for him to be on a team that could afford to have his upside, that had a bunch of receivers. Like, if he was on Justin's team, I think that'd be terrific. If he was on, like, Patrick's team, where he could just sit at the end of the bench, not do nothing, and we would just see, be a really good pick, really good fit. But the problem is, you're the team that kind of needs receivers, and you're the team that has, like, no bench for receivers. So you can't really afford to kind of wait on him because you need guys who are going to contribute, especially if, like, A.J. Brown, let's say A.J. Brown and Stephon Diggs get hurt at the same time. Thornton's in your lineup then, and he is not ready for that. Like, he's nowhere near ready for that. So this is a projection pick, but to be completely honest with you, I don't think he's going to contribute at all this season. I just don't think he's ready. I mean, he's got the athletic gifts. There might be times where they scheme something up for him, but when I look at him, I'm just like, man, if he can just get a route tree, if he can just learn how to run routes and have any semblance of an idea of how to read coverage, he'll be a fantastic player. But that's a lot to learn. That takes years. And he basically learned none of that in college. There's no base of foundation. We're starting at ground zero. So it's going to be a while. And I don't kind of like the same. So quarterbacks, I'm giving like a month. With a running back, I'd give like, I'll be very lenient just because I think, again, because of the rate of attrition, I'll give a running back like 12 weeks. But with wide receiver, it's kind of weird. It really just depends on the team because you can find wide receivers. So right now, to be honest with you, just where you are, I would think about cutting Thornton and kind of just finding someone who's going to contribute. If you want to wait on him, that's fine. He's got incredible talent. It just might be a long wait. 231, last pick, $1. We took Chris Brooks, but I think we've since like cut Chris Brooks and we've taken Emmanuel Wilson. Essentially what I think you're doing is like trying to find the handcuff to Josh Jacobs, which I think, funny enough, might be Marshawn Lloyd, who's on IR and on another team right now in our league. I don't think Wilson is the handcuff. To be honest, I don't really know why he's on your team at all. I think whenever Lloyd comes back, he is the backup. So I would keep Lloyd. I wouldn't keep Brooks or Wilson if I had to pick one. I think Brooks has actually won the number 2 job, so I'm not sure why we dropped him for Emmanuel Wilson. You should check the depth chart for Green Bay and just see if it's really important to you to have the handcuff to Josh Jacobs, so to speak. And I guess Wilson was like solid last year. He made like a little cameo at the end of the season when they didn't play Jacobs right before the playoffs. But you know, he's like a 3rd string running back, maybe 4th string running back right now. So it's not maybe 100 yards, maybe a touchdown or 2. So all of that's to say, again, I think your team's a playoff team, Stefan. I actually like all of the depth. But I don't see how with this team you would kind of get to a title. And that's kind of why you're here. You're kind of like the good team. You're like a quality. If we had to make this in like baseball terms, you're kind of like the Indians. Like the Cleveland Indians right now are pretty solid. They're a good team. They can do everything well. They're right in the middle and then in the thick of things. But I don't really give them much of a shot to do anything. Just because they don't have any, like, their best player is their third baseman Ramirez, and he's got some power, but everywhere else on the team, like they strike out too much, they don't score a lot of runs. The bullpen's good, but not great. The starting pitching is injured. Like it's like a good team, but I just don't have any real belief that they're going to go anywhere. Now, granted, I usually say the most important thing is just to get into the dance. And that's true. The most important thing for you is just get to the playoffs. Like, I can be wrong. You might go far. There might be things to do. And I think your team is a genuine playoff team. I think it's probably the 5th or 6th seed in the playoffs, just based off of injuries to others. But yeah, you kind of just took a lot of floor guys. Like AJ Brown and T. Higgins are floor guys. There's not going to be we're going to have a 1,500-yard season and lead the league in touchdowns kind of guys. Pollard's a floor guy. Bigsby's definitely a floor guy. Harvey's got some upside, but you kind of just need to see. It's really going to come down to how good is Jacobs, and can you get secondary contributors from Harvey or or the backfield in Jacksonville to kind of pair them with Pollard and Jacobs. The other thing you're going to want to keep a close eye on is May, obviously. See if he can be a starting quarterback. But the thing that gives me kind of pause is just your receiving core. If I was confident that your receivers would stay healthy, then I might feel a little better about things. I think this is kind of a lower end build of what Brian did, essentially, taking all of the running backs. But I feel way better about Brian's receivers with Brian Thomas and Garrett Wilson and Cortland Sutton, all younger guys kind of in their prime who don't really show much injury history. Whereas you've taken, T. Higgins is in his prime, and I suppose A.J. Brown's towards the end of his prime. Diggs is not in his prime, but they're all injury risks. And you have, no real, any sort of backup plan if one of them's injured, let alone two. So I'm not even sure if Diggs is going to be healthy for the season. He's starting for you. That's just makes me kind of queasy. So that is why you are my 9th team. I think you're the team right now, currently, that people ought to be talking to about making a trade. The teams below you ought to consider making a trade. There are teams above you that I think ought to be making a trade. Just because you need a quarterback, your receiving core is meh, and you're deep at running back. You're kind of the trade person. I just hope that you aren't patient, funny enough, and that you are a little bit more aggressive about it than you have been. Kind of the same way I feel about Justin, though to your credit, last year you did come in 4th. You had a very good season, and you kind of stuck to your guns. So you're getting better, and I can definitely tell from this draft you had an idea, and you kind of followed it. I think you played it a little too safe, but I still think the team is quality. So please don't be discouraged by me putting you 9th, because I do genuinely think you're going to be a playoff team. I just don't know if you can be a championship team. But hey, prove me wrong. You're closer than most.